They saw us as a legend until humanity joined the battle. The lecture hall was quiet as Ambassador Jiwoo stood before 200 young cadets. Behind her, a holographic display showed an image of Earth, blue and green and beautiful. The planet looked peaceful in the projection, but Jiwoo's voice carried a warning tone that made the students sit up straight in their seats. 600 years ago, this world was home to the Terrans, she said. We called them humans. They were a species unlike any other in the galaxy. Strong, aggressive, and completely unpredictable, they discovered atomic power and used it to destroy themselves. Every city turned to ash. Every ocean boiled. The entire species vanished in nuclear fire. A young cadet raised his hand. Ambassador, why do we still study them if they're gone? Jiwoo touched the control panel and the image changed. Now it showed primitive human warriors, then ancient soldiers, then more modern armies. Because we must remember what happens when a species cannot control its own violence. The Terrans were brilliant, yes. They created art and music and literature, but they were also warriors. Every century of their history was marked by war. Small wars, big wars, wars that consumed whole continents. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Galactic Coalition has maintained peace for 300 years. We achieved this by learning from the Terran mistake. We choose diplomacy over violence. We choose cooperation over competition. The humans are our cautionary tale, our reminder of what we must never become. The cadets nodded, scribbling notes on their tablets. None of them questioned the story. Why would they? It was ancient history, accepted fact, taught in every coalition school for 6 centuries. What Jiwoo did not know, what no one in the coalition knew, was that at that very moment, humanity was about to return. Far beyond coalition space, a ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. The vessel was called the Defiant Dawn, and it represented 600 years of human survival, adaptation, and hope. On the bridge, Captain Tae-sung stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the view screen as unknown stars filled their vision. Jump successful, reported Lieutenant Daeho from the tactical station. All systems stable. No immediate threats detected. Captain Tae-sung allowed himself a small smile. Well done, everyone. We just became the first humans to leave our solar system in 6 centuries. He turned to the communications officer. Bo-ra, start passive scans. Let's see what's out here. Bo-ra's fingers danced across her console. Scanning now, Captain. I'm detecting multiple energy signatures. Radio transmissions, subspace communications. Sir, there's a lot of activity in this region. Intelligent life? Asked Dr. Hana from the science station. The xenobiologist leaned forward, her eyes bright with excitement. Multiple species, from what I can tell. Bo-ra confirmed. The transmission patterns suggest an organized civilization. Maybe even a federation of some kind. Tae-sung nodded slowly. This was what they had hoped for. Earth had spent 600 years in isolation, rebuilding from the nuclear wars that nearly destroyed them, advancing their technology, and preparing for this moment. Humanity was ready to join the galactic community if one existed. Captain, Daeho said suddenly, his voice tight. I'm picking up a distress signal. It's automated, broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Distance is approximately 4 light hours. Can you translate it? Daeho worked quickly, running the signal through their linguistic computers. The language is unknown, but the mathematical components are clear. Someone is in trouble. They're under attack. Hana stood up from her station. Captain, this could be our chance for first contact. If we help them, it could also get us killed, interrupted Young Sik from engineering. The young engineer looked nervous. We don't know anything about these species. What if they're hostile? What if this is a trap? Tae-sung considered the options. 600 years ago, humanity's first contact with aliens had ended in disaster. The coalition fleet had encountered human vessels during a time of war, witnessing nuclear weapons being deployed. They had labeled humanity as dangerous and cut off all contact, leaving Earth isolated. Humans had always wondered if the aliens would return, but they never did. Now humanity had a chance to change that narrative. But was it worth the risk? Set a course for the distress signal, Tae-sung decided. Maximum stealth. We'll observe from a distance before making any decisions. The Defiant Dawn moved through space like a ghost, its advanced dampening systems hiding it from most sensors. As they approached the source of the distress signal, the crew saw something that made their blood run cold. A mining colony floated in the void, built into the surface of a large asteroid. The colony should have been peaceful, a place where families lived and worked. Instead, it was covered in dark, writhing shapes. Organic creatures, thousands of them, crawled across the colony's surface, tearing through metal and consuming everything they found. "What are those things?" whispered Bo-Ra. Before anyone could answer, ships appeared on the view screen. Sleek vessels with elegant designs, clearly advanced. They bore symbols that the computer couldn't translate, but their purpose was obvious. These were warships arriving to help the colony. "Coalition fleet," Deho reported. 6 heavy cruisers, multiple fighter craft. They're opening fire on the creatures. The crew of the Defiant Dawn watched as the battle unfolded. The alien ships fired energy weapons at the organic creatures, killing hundreds with each blast. But for every creature that died, 10 more appeared. The swarm was overwhelming, relentless. "They're not going to make it in time," Hana said quietly. "The colony will be overrun before they can clear the creatures." She was right. Even as the alien warships fought bravely, the creatures breached the colony's main habitat. Life support failed. Atmosphere vented into space. The scanning equipment on the Defiant Dawn picked up thousands of life signs vanishing in moments. The alien fleet stopped firing. There was nothing left to save. Tae-sung's jaw clenched as he watched the alien ships retreat, leaving the destroyed colony behind. The dark creatures remained, feeding on the wreckage. "Captain?" Hana said softly, stepping beside him. "We need to make contact. Those people, whoever they are, they need help. That swarm will spread to other colonies if it's not stopped." "And what do we tell them?" Young-Sik asked. "Hi, we're the species you thought was extinct? The ones you abandoned 600 years ago?" "We tell them the truth," Hana insisted. "We tell them that humanity survived, that we learned from our mistakes, that we're not the monsters they remember." Tae-sung looked at his crew. Deho at tactical, ready to fight if needed. Bo-Ra at communications, ready to bridge the gap between species. Young-Sik at engineering, ready to solve impossible problems. And Hana, the eternal optimist, ready to believe in the goodness of others. They were all so young, all born long after the isolation began. They had grown up on stories of the stars, dreaming of the day humanity would return to space. This was their moment, their chance to define what humanity would become. "Bo-Ra," Tae-sung said finally, "open a channel on all frequencies. Broadcast in every language we know, along with mathematical sequences to show we're intelligent." Bo-Ra's hands shook slightly as she complied. "Channel open, Captain." Tae-sung took a deep breath. "This is Captain Tae-sung of the Terran vessel Defiant Dawn. We are human. We are here and we are not your enemy. We saw what happened to your colony. We grieve for your losses, and we stand ready to help if you will allow us." He nodded to Bo-Ra, who transmitted the message. In the lecture hall, Ambassador Jiwoo was dismissing her students when her personal communicator buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting routine administrative nonsense. Instead, she saw an emergency alert from Fleet Command. The message was simple, impossible, and terrifying. Terran vessel detected. First contact protocols initiated. All senior diplomats report immediately. Jiwoo's tablet slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. They saw us as a legend, until humanity joined the battle admiral. Kiravel stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring at the sensor readings as if they might change if she looked hard enough. They did not change. The impossible remained impossible, yet somehow real. "Confirm the translation again," she ordered. Her communications officer, a young Velkin with purple skin and 4 arms, nodded nervously. "Confirmed, Admiral. The message is clear. The vessel identifies itself as Terran. Human. They claim to be here in peace." "Humans." Kiravel repeated the word like it was poison. "The extinct species. The warriors who destroyed themselves. They're here now after 600 years of silence. What are your orders, Admiral?" Kiravel's tactical training screamed at her to fire first and ask questions later. Every child in the Coalition learned about the Terrans. They were monsters. Creatures of pure aggression who would rather die than surrender. If they had returned, it could only mean danger, but she was also a professional. She had not risen to Admiral by acting on fear alone. "Charge weapons but hold fire," she commanded. "Deploy our fighters in defensive formation. Open a return channel and demand proof of identity. If they are truly human, they will have records, historical data, genetic markers. Make them prove it." On the Defiant Dawn, Tae-sung received the Coalition's response. The tone was cold, suspicious, but not immediately hostile. That was something. They want proof, Bora reported. Genetic data, historical records, anything that confirms we are who we say we are. Give them everything, Taesung said. Dr. Hana, compile our complete historical database. Include everything from before the isolation. Music, art, literature, scientific papers. Show them we're not just warriors. Hana worked quickly, assembling a data package that represented 600 years of human survival. She included the good and the bad. The wars that nearly destroyed Earth, yes, but also the peace that followed. The famines and the recoveries. The mistakes and the lessons learned. Transmitting now, Bora said. The data packet crossed the void between human and alien ships. On the Coalition flagship, analysts examined it with increasing disbelief. The genetic markers match historical records, one scientist reported. The cultural artifacts are consistent with pre-isolation Terran society. And Admiral, they've included things we never recorded. Personal journals, local music, regional languages. This is authentic. Caravel absorbed this information slowly. They're really human. They survived. There's more, Admiral. According to their historical files, the nuclear exchange that we witnessed was not their extinction. It was their lowest point, yes, but they rebuilt. They've been rebuilding for 6 centuries. The Admiral looked at the view screen where the human ship waited patiently. It was smaller than her cruisers, less heavily armed, but somehow it didn't look weak. It looked efficient, purposeful. Open a secure channel to Coalition Command, Kiravel ordered. The Council needs to make this decision, not me. Across Coalition space, emergency meetings convened. Council members argued, historians scrambled to verify the data, and military commanders debated whether humanity represented a threat or an opportunity. Ambassador Jiwoo found herself at the center of it all. As the Coalition's foremost expert on human history, she was summoned to the High Council chamber to provide her assessment. Ambassador Jiwoo, the Council leader addressed her. You have studied the Terrans more than anyone. You have taught entire generations about them. Now they have returned. What do you recommend? Jiwoo stood before the assembled leaders, her mind racing. Everything she thought she knew had been wrong. Humans were not extinct. They had survived their worst impulses and rebuilt their civilization. The monsters of legend were apparently capable of change. I recommend caution, she said carefully, but also opportunity. The data they've provided is genuine. They are human, without doubt, but they are not the same humans we encountered 600 years ago. They've evolved, culturally if not biologically. They're reaching out in peace, asking for dialogue. They could be lying, argued Elder Thane Kier, a conservative voice on the council. Deception is a human trait. They may be planning an attack. Then why announce themselves? Jiwoo countered. Why send historical data and cultural artifacts? If they wanted to attack, they could have remained hidden. Their stealth systems are clearly advanced. We didn't detect them until they chose to reveal themselves. The council debated for hours. Finally, a decision was reached. Ambassador Jiwoo, the council leader said, you will make first contact with the humans. Board their vessel, verify their intentions, and report back. Admiral Kiravel will provide military escort. Jiwoo felt her stomach twist. She was going to meet humans. Real humans. The species that haunted her nightmares and filled her academic papers. The species she had spent her entire career studying, never expecting to actually encounter. I understand, she said, keeping her voice steady. I will not fail the Coalition. 3 hours later, Jiwoo stood in the docking bay of the Coalition flagship, wearing her formal diplomatic robes. A small shuttle waited to carry her to the human vessel. She carried no weapons. If the humans wanted to kill her, weapons would not save her anyway. The shuttle ride was short. As they approached the defiant dawn, Jiwoo studied the human ship carefully. It was elegant in its simplicity, with clean lines and minimal decoration. No excessive weapons clusters, no intimidating design features. It looked like a ship built for exploration, not conquest. The shuttle docked with a soft clang. Jiwoo took a deep breath and stepped through the airlock. Captain Taesung waited on the other side, along with Dr. Hana. Both wore simple uniforms, blue and white with minimal insignia. They were smaller than Jiwoo expected. She stood nearly 7 feet tall in her species standard, but these humans were barely 6 feet. They looked almost fragile. Then she met Taesung's eyes, and fragile was the last word that came to mind. His gaze was steady, intelligent, and completely calm. This was someone who had seen hardship and survived. Ambassador Jiwoo, Taesung said, speaking through a translation device. Welcome aboard the Defiant Dawn. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Jiwoo bowed formally, following diplomatic protocol. Captain Taesung, Dr. Hana, I come as a representative of the Galactic Coalition. My purpose is to verify your identity and assess your intentions. We understand, Hana said warmly. We'll answer any questions you have. We want the same thing you do, peace and cooperation. For the next hour, Jiwoo interviewed them. She asked about Earth, about human history, about their technology and culture. Taesung and Hana answered everything honestly, holding nothing back. What surprised Jiwoo most was their humility. They did not boast about human achievements. They did not make excuses for human failures. They simply presented the facts and let her draw her own conclusions. You knew we were watching, Jiwoo said eventually, when that mining colony was attacked. You observed the battle? Yes, Taesung confirmed. We saw the coalition fleet arrive too late. We saw the colony fall. It was horrible. Yet you revealed yourselves anyway. Why? Taesung and Hana exchanged a glance. Then Hana spoke. Because hiding would have been cowardly. Because those creatures will attack again, and more people will die. Because 600 years ago we made a terrible first impression and we thought it was time to try again. Before Jiwoo could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Daeho's voice came over the intercom, urgent and controlled. Captain, to the bridge. We have multiple distress signals. The creatures are attacking a medical station. Coalition ships are responding, but they're outnumbered. Taesung looked at Jiwoo. Ambassador, I need to go to my bridge. You're welcome to accompany me, or we can return you to your shuttle. Jiwoo made a split-second decision. I'll come with you. I want to see how humans respond to a crisis. The bridge was controlled chaos. Daeho coordinated sensor readings while Young-Sik monitored the ship's systems. Bora tracked coalition communications. On the view screen, they could see the medical station under assault. The dark creatures swarmed over it like ants on sugar. 6 coalition cruisers engaging, Daeho reported. They're using standard suppression tactics, concentrating fire on the largest creature clusters. It won't work, Taesung said, watching the battle. Those creatures adapt too quickly. The coalition fleet is fighting them the same way they fought the last time. The creatures have already learned the patterns. So what do we do? Jiwoo asked, surprising herself with the question. Taesung smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who understood war far too well. We show them how humans fight, he said. Daeho, plot an intercept course. Young-Sik, I need you to do something crazy with our shields. Bora, open a channel to the coalition fleet. Captain, Jiwoo protested. You can't engage. The council hasn't approved. People are dying, Taesung interrupted gently. We can debate politics later. Right now I'm going to save as many lives as possible. He turned to the view screen. This is Captain Taesung of the Defiant Dawn to Coalition Fleet. We're moving to assist. Follow our lead. They saw us as a legend until humanity joined the battle. The Defiant Dawn cut through space toward the besieged medical station. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Kiravel watched with a mixture of horror and fascination as the small human vessel accelerated past her cruisers. What are they doing? Her tactical officer asked. I don't know, Kiravel admitted, but we're about to find out. On the human bridge, Taesung stood calmly at the center of organized chaos. Young-Sik, status on those shield modifications? Almost done, Captain, the engineer responded, his fingers flying across his console. I'm reconfiguring the harmonic frequency to create electromagnetic interference. If I'm right, it should disrupt whatever the creatures use for communication. And if you're wrong, then our shields will fail and we'll all die horribly. Taesung nodded as if this was a completely reasonable answer. Jiwoo, standing beside him, felt her legs weaken. These humans were insane. Daeho, I need firing solutions on the creature clusters near the station's medical bay. Taesung continued. Don't target the big groups. Target the small ones, the scouts. Force them to regroup. That's the opposite of standard tactics, Jiwoo found herself saying. Yes, Taesung agreed, which is exactly why it will work. The creatures have adapted to coalition tactics. They expect focused fire on the largest threats. They won't expect us to ignore the main swarm and pick off the edges. The Defiant Dawn dove into the battle zone. Energy beams from coalition ships crisscrossed the void, striking creature after creature. But for everyone killed, more emerged from the station's interior. Shields at modified frequency, Young-Sik announced. Activating now. The ship's shields flickered with a strange purple light. Immediately, the creatures nearest to the defiant dawn began acting erratically. They stopped their coordinated assault and started moving randomly, bumping into each other. "It's working," Hana exclaimed from the science station. "The creatures communicate through bioelectric signals. Our shields are jamming them." "Daeho, open fire," Taesung ordered. The human ship's weapons were different from Coalition energy beams. They fired projectiles, physical rounds that moved at incredible speeds. Each shot punched through creatures with devastating effect. "Target the scouts," Taesung reminded him. "Make them pull back their forward units." Daeho worked with machine precision, selecting targets that seemed insignificant to the Coalition forces but were clearly important to the swarm's coordination. Each time a scout creature died, the ones near it fell into confusion. Admiral Kiravel watched this new tactic with growing understanding. "They're not trying to kill the most creatures," she said aloud. "They're trying to disrupt their organization. Should we assist them, Admiral?" Kiravel made a quick decision. "All ships cease fire on the main swarm. Focus on the outlying creatures. Follow the human ship's targeting pattern." The Coalition fleet adjusted their tactics. Instead of pouring fire into the largest groups, they began picking off individual creatures. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The swarm's coordinated attack began to fall apart. Without their scouts and communication network, the creatures became a disorganized mob. "The medical station is evacuating," Bora reported. "They're getting people into escape pods." "Cover them," Taesung ordered. "Daeho, anything that gets close to those pods, you kill it." For the next 15 minutes, the Defiant Dawn danced through the battle space like a fighter craft, despite being a cruiser-class vessel. Youngsik pushed the engines beyond their rated capacity, making impossible maneuvers. Daeho's targeting was perfect, not a single shot wasted, and Bora coordinated with the Coalition fleet, teaching them the new tactics in real time. Jiwoo watched it all with growing amazement. She had studied human military history, read about their wars, analyzed their strategies. But reading about human combat effectiveness was completely different from witnessing it. These were not the mindless warriors of legend. These were professionals, skilled and disciplined. They fought with creativity, adapting to the situation rather than following rigid doctrine. And most importantly, they fought to save lives, not to prove their strength. "Last evacuation pod is clear," Bora announced. "All ships, pull back," Taesung ordered. "Youngsik, get us clear." "Daeho, prep the station's reactor for overload." "Captain?" Jiwoo questioned. "The creatures nest in the structures they conquer," Hana explained quietly. "If we leave the station intact, they'll use it as a breeding ground. We need to destroy it." "You're going to blow up the medical station?" "There's no one left aboard," Taesung said. "Everyone who could be saved has been saved. Now we prevent this place from becoming a threat to others." Daeho worked quickly, hacking into the station's systems and initiating a reactor overload. The Defiant Dawn and the Coalition fleet retreated to a safe distance. The medical station exploded in a brilliant flash, taking thousands of creatures with it. There was silence on the bridge. Then Bora spoke softly. "Coalition fleet is requesting communication, Captain." "Put them through." Admiral Kiravel's face appeared on the view screen. She looked tired but impressed. "Captain Taesung, that was extraordinary. Your tactics saved hundreds of lives that would have been lost if we'd continued our standard assault pattern." "Thank you, Admiral. But the real threat is still out there. Those creatures came from somewhere. We need to find the source." Before Kiravel could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. It was Do-Yun, a Coalition scientist who had been studying the creatures for months. "Captain Taesung is correct," Do-Yun said. "I've been analyzing the creatures' behavior patterns. They're not acting randomly. There's intelligence directing them, coordinating their attacks. I believe there's a central entity controlling the swarm." "A hive mind?" Hana asked. "More than that. A nexus core. It's not just directing the creatures. It's processing information from millions of individual units, learning from each encounter. That's why Coalition tactics stopped working. The core learned our patterns and adapted the swarm to counter them." Taesung leaned forward. "Can you locate this core?" "I've been trying for months," Do-Yun admitted. "But I've only been able to narrow it down to a region. It's somewhere in the Keltar debris field near the collapsed star system. That's a massive search area, and the radiation makes detailed scans impossible. Then we search it manually, Taesung said simply. Ji-woo stepped forward. Captain, you're talking about a major military operation. This requires coalition approval, strategic planning, resource allocation. While we plan and debate how many more colonies will fall, Taesung interrupted. How many more lives will be lost? He's right, Admiral Kiravel said. I'm authorizing a joint task force. Captain Taesung, I'll assign 3 cruisers to accompany you. We'll search the debris field and locate this Nexus core. I want to send reinforcements from Earth, Taesung said. Specifically, I need Commander Soo-jin and her Special Forces unit. If we find the core, we'll need soldiers who can operate in extreme environments. Kiravel nodded. Approved. How long until your reinforcements arrive? 3 days at maximum speed. Then we have 3 days to prepare. Ambassador Ji-woo, I assume you'll want to return to the Coalition Council to report? Ji-woo looked at Taesung, then at the human crew working efficiently around her. She thought about everything she had witnessed. These were not the monsters she had taught her students about. These were people flawed and brave and determined to do the right thing. No, she said. I'll stay aboard the Defiant Dawn. Someone needs to document this properly. And if we're about to form a joint human coalition task force, there should be an official coalition presence. Taesung smiled. Welcome aboard, Ambassador. I hope you like coffee. We have 3 days of planning ahead. The next 3 days were intense. The Defiant Dawn docked with Admiral Kiravel's flagship, and joint strategy sessions began. Do-Yun came aboard to share his research on the creatures, which he had named the Valth Swarm. Hana and Do-Yun worked together, combining human biological knowledge with coalition xenobiology. They discovered the Valth were once a peaceful species, but something had changed them, enslaved them to the Nexus Core's will. Meanwhile, Young-Sik collaborated with coalition engineers, sharing human technology in exchange for coalition advancements. The cultural exchange was awkward at first, filled with misunderstandings and mistrust, but slowly, barriers began to break down. Ji-woo observed it all, taking detailed notes. She watched Daeho teach coalition tactical officers about adaptive combat strategies. She listened to Bo-Ra and the coalition communications teams develop new protocols for interspecies coordination. She even helped Hana translate ancient Valth records that Do-Yun had recovered. On the 3rd day, new ships arrived from Earth. The reinforcements were smaller than expected. Just 2 vessels, but they were impressive. One was a military transport carrying Commander Soo-jin and her Revenant Special Forces unit. The other was a support craft with additional supplies and equipment. Commander Soo-jin was different from Captain Taesung. Where he was calm and diplomatic, she was intense and direct. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a voice that commanded instant obedience. Captain Taesung, she said, saluting crisply, reporting as ordered. My team is ready for deployment. They saw us as a legend until humanity joined the battle. The Keltar debris field was a graveyard of planets. Thousands of years ago, a star had collapsed, destroying the solar system around it. What remained was a maze of broken worlds, asteroid fragments, and dangerous radiation. It was the perfect hiding place for something that didn't want to be found. The joint task force moved slowly through the debris, scanning every large fragment. Coalition cruisers took the outer perimeter, while the Defiant Dawn, with its superior sensors, probed deeper into the field. On the human ship's bridge, Taesung studied the sensor readings with Do-Yun and Hana. The coalition scientist had been aboard for the entire journey, and Ji-woo had watched him transform from suspicious to genuinely enthusiastic about working with humans. The radiation here is incredible, Do-Yun said. It's interfering with our scans, but that same radiation would provide perfect cover for the Nexus core. If I wanted to hide something, this is where I'd put it. Can you filter out the radiation noise? Hana asked. I've been trying. Human sensor technology is different from ours. More aggressive, less refined, but surprisingly effective in these conditions. Do-Yun made some adjustments. Wait, I'm getting something. A massive energy signature buried deep in the debris field near the stellar remnant itself. Taesung leaned closer. That has to be it. Bo-Ra, relay the coordinates to Admiral Kiravel. On the coalition flagship, Kiravel received the data and immediately ordered her ships to converge on the location. As they approached, the true scale of the Nexus core became apparent. It was enormous, a structure the size of a small moon. Biomechanical in nature, it pulsed with sickly green light. Thousands of Valth creatures crawled across its surface, and dozens of organic tendrils reached out into space like grasping fingers. "By the old stars," Kiravel whispered. "It's been here all along, growing, spreading," Captain Deho said urgently. "The core is detecting us. The Valth are responding." From the structure, creatures began pouring out. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. They formed a living wall between the task force and the Nexus core. "All ships defensive formation," Kiravel ordered. "Prepare to engage." "Negative," Taesung countered. "Admiral, if we try to fight through that many Valth, we'll be overwhelmed. We need a different approach." "What do you suggest?" Taesung looked at Commander Sujin, who had been studying the core through her own tactical displays. The Special Forces commander nodded slowly. "We go in small," Sujin said. "A strike team. Plant explosives throughout the core's interior and destroy it from the inside. While the fleet keeps the Valth busy, my team infiltrates and completes the mission." Jiwoo felt cold fear settle in her stomach. "That's a suicide mission." "It's the only way," Sujin replied calmly. "The fleet can't penetrate those defenses. But a small team moving fast and quiet might make it through." "I'll need volunteers," Taesung said. "This isn't an order I can give." "I volunteer," Sujin said immediately. "As do I," said Deho, stepping away from his station. "Count me in," added Youngsik, surprising everyone. Hana stood. "I'm coming too. If the Nexus core has any data storage, any records, we need a scientist to retrieve them." "And I will accompany you," Jiwoo heard herself say. The words left her mouth before her brain could stop them. Everyone turned to stare at the tall alien diplomat. "Ambassador," Taesung said carefully, "you're not trained for combat operations." "No, but I'm trained to observe and document. If you're going to destroy the Nexus core, someone should record what you find inside. For history, for the Coalition, for understanding what we're truly fighting." Sujin studied Jiwoo with those sharp eyes. "Can you keep up? Can you follow orders without question? Can you keep yourself alive when everything goes wrong?" "I'll do my best." "Best isn't good enough in combat." "Then teach me," Jiwoo said firmly. "You have 2 hours to prepare the mission. Use one of those hours to give me basic survival training." Sujin almost smiled. "You've got courage, diplomat. Stupid courage, but courage nonetheless. Fine. Welcome to the Revenants." The next hour was the most physically demanding of Jiwoo's life. Sujin and her soldiers put the ambassador through a crash course in combat basics. How to wear armor, how to use a weapon, how to move quietly, how to follow hand signals. Jiwoo failed at most of it, but she learned enough to hopefully not be a complete liability. Meanwhile, Taesung and Admiral Kiravel planned the diversionary assault. The Coalition fleet would attack the Valth swarm with overwhelming force, drawing every creature away from the Nexus core. In the chaos, a small shuttle would slip through and deliver the strike team to the structure's surface. "It's a good plan," Kiravel admitted. "Risky but good. Captain, I want you to know that regardless of what happens today, humanity has proven itself. The Coalition was wrong about you." "Thank you, Admiral. That means more than you know." The strike team assembled in the shuttle bay, Sujin and 5 of her best soldiers all wearing heavy combat armor. Youngsik with his engineering tools, Hana with her scientific equipment, Deho with enough weapons to start a small war, and Jiwoo looking awkward in borrowed armor that didn't quite fit her alien physiology. Taesung came to see them off. He shook hands with each team member, spending an extra moment with Hana. "Come back," he said quietly. "I will," she promised. "We all will." The shuttle launched just as the Coalition fleet opened fire. Energy beams filled space, striking the Valth swarm. The creatures responded exactly as planned, surging forward to meet the attack. They left the Nexus core's immediate vicinity exposed. The shuttle pilot, a human named Juan, flew like a madman. He twisted through debris, used asteroid fragments for cover, and generally ignored every safety protocol in existence. Jiwoo's stomach churned, but they made it through undetected. Approaching the core, Juan announced, "I'll set you down on the north section near what looks like an entrance." "Good luck." The team disembarked onto the core's surface. Up close, it was even more disturbing. The structure was alive, breathing, pulsing with energy. The surface was covered in organic matter that felt wrong to walk on. Sujin took point, moving with confident efficiency. Her soldiers spread out in defensive positions. Youngsik used his scanner to map the interior structure. Hana collected biological samples. Daeho watched their backs, and Jiwoo recorded everything on her personal device. They found an opening, a sphincter-like entrance that dilated as they approached. Inside was darkness and the sound of breathing. "Switch to night vision," Soo-jin ordered. "Stay close, stay quiet." The interior of the Nexus core was a nightmare. Corridors of pulsing flesh, chambers filled with incubating Valth, and everywhere the overwhelming sense of intelligence watching them. The structure knew they were here. "This way," Young-sik said, following his scanner. "The main power nodes are deeper inside. We need to reach the central chamber." They moved through the organic corridors, occasionally encountering Valth drones. Each time, Soo-jin's soldiers dealt with the creatures quickly and quietly. But Jiwoo could feel time running out. The core was adapting, responding. More creatures were being routed back from the fleet battle. They reached the central chamber and stopped in shock. It was vast, cathedral-like, and at its center floated something that defied description. It was part machine, part organic, part energy. The true Nexus core, the intelligence controlling everything, and it was ancient, far older than the Coalition, older than recorded history. "By all the stars," Hana whispered. "This thing has been alive for millennia." Young-sik deployed his equipment. "I'm setting charges at the key structural points. When these blow, the whole structure will collapse." Hana approached the central entity carefully, scanning it with her equipment. "Captain Tae-sung, are you receiving this data? The Nexus core contains vast information archives, thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. Can you extract it?" Tae-sung's voice came through their comms, distorted by interference. "I'm trying." While Hana worked, Jiwoo explored the chamber. She found something that made her blood run cold. Skeletal remains, dozens of different species, all ancient, victims of the Nexus core from long ago. "It's done this before," she said aloud. "Conquered species absorbed them, moved on. The Valth are just its latest slaves." "Charges are set," Young-sik announced. "We have 5 minutes to get clear." "I need more time," Hana protested. "These archives contain information about the core's origins, its weaknesses." An alarm blared through their comms. Daeho's voice came through, tense. "Contact. Multiple Valth returning to the core. They're entering through every opening. We need to leave now." Soo-jin made the call. "Everyone out. We complete the mission." "Wait," Hana said desperately. "Just 30 more seconds," the chamber shuddered. The Nexus core had realized their intent. Suddenly, the walls came alive with Valth creatures pouring in from hidden passages. "Move!" Soo-jin shouted. The team ran. Soo-jin and her soldiers laid down covering fire, fighting a desperate retreat. Young-sik led them back through the corridors they had mapped. Daeho protected the rear. Hana clutched her data device, still downloading what she could. And Jiwoo ran, her inadequate training barely keeping her moving. They reached the exit just as the charges detonated. The explosion was massive, tearing through the Nexus core's interior. They saw us as a legend, until humanity joined the battle. The medical bay aboard the Defiant Dawn was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Myung-hee had worked for 6 hours straight to save Soo-jin and Jiwoo. Both patients were stable now, unconscious, but alive. Captain Tae-sung stood in the doorway watching the medic check their vital signs. His face showed the exhaustion of the past days, but also relief. They had succeeded. The Nexus core was destroyed, the Valth swarm was scattered, and everyone had made it back alive. "They'll both recover," Myung-hee said without looking up. "Commander Soo-jin will need 2 weeks of bed rest and physical therapy. Ambassador Jiwoo lost her right arm, but Coalition medical technology should be able to provide a cybernetic replacement." "Thank you, Myung-hee. You saved their lives." "I did my job, Captain. Same as everyone else." Tae-sung left the medical bay and returned to the bridge. The task force had withdrawn to a safe distance from the debris field. Coalition and human, ships floated side by side, crews working together to repair damage and tend to the wounded. "Status report," Tae-sung requested as he took his command chair. Daeho, who had returned to his tactical station, looked tired but satisfied. "The Nexus core is completely destroyed. Sensors confirm no remaining power signatures. The Valth creatures are scattered across 12 systems. Without the core's coordination, they're acting randomly. Coalition forces are hunting them down now." "Casualties?" "Surprisingly light on our side. 17 injured, none fatal. The Coalition fleet took heavier damage, but their losses were minimal compared to previous engagements. Admiral Kiravel reports that our joint tactics worked better than expected. Taesung nodded. And the data Dr. Hana retrieved? Still being analyzed, Bo-Ra answered. But preliminary scans show information about dozens of extinct civilizations. The Nexus Core was ancient, Captain. Thousands of years old. It had been consuming species long before the Coalition even existed. Then we stopped something truly terrible. Good. A communication request came through from the Coalition flagship. Taesung accepted it, and Admiral Kiravel appeared on the view screen. She looked as tired as everyone felt. Captain Taesung, the Coalition Council has been following our progress. They want to speak with you directly. I understand. Should I transfer to your ship? No need. They're opening a channel now. The view screen changed, showing the High Council chamber. All the senior members were present, including Elder Thane Kyr, who had opposed human contact from the beginning. The council leader spoke first. Captain Taesung, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, we thank you for your service. Your tactics and courage saved countless lives. The Valth threat has been neutralized because of your actions. Thank you, council leader. But the credit belongs to everyone who participated. Human and Coalition forces worked together. That's what made the difference. Indeed. Which brings us to an important decision. The Coalition must vote on whether to grant humanity membership. This vote will determine our future relationship. Taesung felt his crew tense around him. This was the moment everything had been leading toward. 600 years of isolation could end today, or humanity might be rejected again. We have reviewed the evidence, the council leader continued. The historical data you provided, the battle records, Ambassador Jiwoo's detailed reports, and most importantly, your actions during this crisis. Elder Thane Kyr stood up. Taesung braced himself for opposition. I have been the strongest voice against human integration, Thane Kyr said. I believed humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable. I taught my students that humans were a cautionary tale, a species that destroyed itself through violence. He paused, looking directly at Taesung through the screen. I was wrong. Not about human capacity for violence. That is real and undeniable, but I was wrong about what that capacity means. Humans are not monsters. You are warriors, yes, but you are warriors who choose to fight for others rather than for yourselves. That is the difference between destruction and protection. Taesung felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. The vote is called, the council leader announced. All in favor of granting humanity provisional membership in the Galactic Coalition? One by one, the council members voted. It was not unanimous. Several members abstained, and a few voted against. But the majority voted in favor. The motion passes, the council leader declared. Humanity is hereby granted provisional coalition membership. You will have 1 standard year to demonstrate your ability to coexist peacefully with other species. After that, we will vote on full membership. On the Defiant Dawn's bridge, the crew erupted in cheers. Bo-Ra was crying. Daeho was grinning widely. Even Young Sik, usually so reserved, was laughing with relief. Taesung stood and bowed formally to the council. On behalf of humanity, we accept this honor. We will not disappoint you. The official ceremony concluded, but Admiral Kiravel remained on the channel. Captain, there's one more thing. The council wants to establish a permanent diplomatic mission. Dr. Hana has been requested to serve as humanity's first official ambassador to the coalition. Taesung looked at Hana's empty station and smiled. She would be thrilled. Over the next week, the task force made its way back to coalition space. During that time, Jiwoo regained consciousness. Taesung visited her in the medical bay, finding her sitting up and examining her bandaged arm stump. Ambassador, he greeted her. How are you feeling? Like I survived something impossible, she replied. Captain, I need to apologize. For 600 years we taught lies about humanity. I taught those lies. I turned your species into monsters in the minds of generations. You taught what you believed was true based on the information you had. We can't blame you for that. Still, I want to make it right. I'm writing a new history. The Terran Truth, I'm calling it. It will correct the record, show what humanity really is. What are we, Ambassador, in your opinion? Jiwoo thought carefully before answering. You're survivors. You're innovators. You're warriors when you need to be, but you'd rather be explorers. You make mistakes, terrible ones, but you learn from them. You're not the gods or monsters we imagined. You're just people who refuse to give up. And the galaxy is better for having you in it. Tae-sung felt his throat tighten with emotion. Thank you, Ambassador. That means everything. Jiwoo looked at her missing arm. The doctors say I can have a cybernetic replacement. Strange, isn't it? I came to document humanity, and now I'll carry a piece of human engineering with me for the rest of my life. Consider it a reminder of the day aliens and humans fought side by side, of the day we stopped being legends and became allies. 1 year passed quickly. Commander Sujin recovered fully and began training Coalition Special Forces in human combat tactics. Her revenants became legendary, a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they applied their warrior skills to protection rather than conquest. Young Sik and the Coalition engineers created new ship designs that combined human and alien technology. The hybrid vessels were faster, more efficient, and more adaptable than anything either species had built alone. Bora established cultural exchange programs. Human music, art, and literature spread throughout Coalition space. In return, humanity absorbed knowledge from dozens of alien civilizations. Earth became a hub of interspecies cooperation. Daeho led joint military patrols, hunting down the last scattered Valth creatures. Under his leadership, not a single Coalition world fell to the swarm. The final Valth was eliminated 6 months after the Nexus Core's destruction. Dr. Hana served as humanity's ambassador with grace and wisdom. She navigated Coalition politics carefully, building relationships with dozens of species. When conflicts arose, she found peaceful solutions. When misunderstandings threatened cooperation, she built bridges of understanding. And Jiwoo published The Terran Truth. The book became required reading in Coalition schools. A generation that grew up fearing humans now learned to respect them. Young Coalition citizens like Cadet Jae-won became humanity's strongest advocates. At the end of the provisional year, the Coalition Council voted again. This time, the vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership. The celebration took place on a neutral world, specially chosen for the historic occasion. Thousands attended, humans, aliens, dignitaries from across the Coalition. A memorial was unveiled, listing the names of everyone who died in the Valth War, both human and alien carved side by side. Captain Tae-sung stood at the memorial beside Admiral Kira Vel. They had become friends over the past year, their mutual respect deepening into genuine affection. A year ago I thought humans were extinct legends, Kira Vel said quietly. Now, I cannot imagine the Coalition without you. A year ago we were isolated and afraid, Tae-sung replied. Now we have a place among the stars. Thank you, Admiral, for giving us a chance. A young alien child approached them, no more than 6 years old in Coalition standard years. She looked up at Tae-sung with wide, curious eyes. Are you really human? She asked. Tae-sung knelt down to her level. I am. My name is Tae-sung. What's yours? Kira. My teacher says humans are scary. Are you scary? Tae-sung smiled gently. Only to people who try to hurt the ones I care about. But I'm not scary to you, am I? Kira studied him seriously, then shook her head.